The next T is timing. And as I've said before, I think timing is probably the most important of all the fundamentals. If you don't have good timing, it takes away from everything else that you do. And if you think of the players that you admire most in guitar, whether it's acoustic or electric guitar, the ones that really stand out are the ones that have a command of timing, a sense of timing that just jumps out when they play. There are ways to improve your timing, and I think you have to start with this T first. You really have to learn good timing techniques and ways to improve your timing before you learn lots of different techniques with your left hand, before you start learning tunes. And the reason I think that's important is because if you learn bad habits, they become permanent. But if you learn the good habits first, then you'll keep them with you the rest of your life. How can you improve your timing? I think that you have to use a timing device, whether it be a record, and I'm going to talk more about this later. I think it's an important thing to play along with records, or a metronome or a drum machine. Now, a timing device like a metronome or a drum machine is the easiest way to do this. It's the most time-honored method of improving your sense of timing. Now, metronomes come in such a variety. There are the pendulum-type metronomes, which are, I think, rather good because they give you a visual reference as well as an auditory reference. You're not just hearing the click that you hear with electronic metronomes, but you're seeing the pendulum swing. The disadvantage of pendulum metronomes is that they're sometimes very inaccurate. The cheaper models can get very inaccurate. They tend to skip at slower rhythms. And if a metronome is not accurate, then you're defeating the purpose of using one. So I think a good alternative is a drum machine. Now, drum machines are electronic devices that give you a rhythm pattern. Now, some of the more advanced ones can give you all kinds of different patterns, give you much more options. You can even program them to play along, and they sound just like drums because many of them have sampled drum sounds. But you don't need anything that elaborate for practicing to improve your timing. You can get something that is fairly inexpensive but can do the job. Now, a metronome click is also included in every drum machine. This is a snare kick sound. And you can use this to practice if you want to. That's what most people do when they play with the metronome, is they play with the click as the downbeat. What I'm going to suggest that you do if you only use a metronome, though, is to use this click as the offbeat. So in a 4/4 song, I want you to use this as the 3 and 4 beats, instead of the 1 and 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Use it as the 2 and 4 instead of the 1 and 3. So, for example, instead of this, use it as the offbeat, like this. Hear the difference? Using this as the 2 and 4 beats allows you to hear the beat more accurately. But the great thing about drum machines is that you don't have to depend on just the metronome click. You can also use other rhythm patterns. And most drum machines, too, by the way, do not come with this external speaker. You have to get a little external speaker in order to hear this, or you can run it to a tape machine and tape the rhythm grooves that you want, play with headphones. I think that's less effective because you don't hear your guitar. So what you'll end up doing is maybe improving your sense of timing, but you're not listening to the way that your guitar is sounding, so your tone suffers. You got to keep all these T's in mind. The metronome can't give you that. I mean, listen to all those different sounds in there. See how much easier it is to play along with something like this. note that I'm playing rhythm right now. I think it's important every time you play, no matter what your level, to practice playing rhythm with a metronome or drum machine as well as lead, because you always want to practice both things. You always want to keep your chops up on your rhythm as well as your lead, because they're equally important. And I could make a pretty good argument that your rhythm's more important. And most people think that all they do is lead, and rhythm is just what they play in between breaks. But that's not a good approach. Okay, we've got this beat right here that we can use. What other kinds of beats do you have that a drum machine can give you? It can actually change your practice habits and make you do things that you would normally not do and expand your repertoire. For example, if you play country music, here's a great country rhythm. Make sure you get the drum machine loud enough to where you can actually hear it almost as loud as your guitar. That's very important. If you look at some of the other patterns, you think about this groove here. It's the same speed. We're playing about 118 beats a minute, 116 beats. This is a great groove for blues improv, which is something I think every player needs to know how to do. You can literally make the drum machine sound like a backing band. Now, I know there's software now called Band in a Box, and there's several other different types of software that literally give you all the sounds of a band and can help you. That may be carrying this even to another level, but you don't have to do that. You can use one of these. Let's explore some of the other grooves that you can use. I mentioned the country rhythm. I think this rhythm here is good for practicing improvisation. Because it gives you the other beats. Instead of just the click, click, click of the metronome, it gives you ta, 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 ta. Listen to that. You've got syncopation happening there. And that syncopation will help you develop that syncopation in your playing. Now, some of these grooves can help you develop syncopation in your playing in unexpected ways. Like, for example, a calypso beat. This is going to change your playing. It's just plain fun to play along with a groove like that. You can set a Caribbean rhythm like that or a calypso rhythm, play along for 30 minutes. You don't even realize the time has passed. And it's fun. It makes your playing more exciting, too, to you. And that's the most important person. If you don't stay excited about your playing, you're going to give it up. And so many players do. So this serves more than just a timing function. But what you'll find is that after you've played with this drum machine and used all of these different rhythms, and do many different rhythms every time that you practice, you'll find that your timing improves. It improves almost imperceptibly. And you go out and play with your friends, and all of a sudden you find out they're not playing in time, which can be a problem. You have to sometimes temper yourself, because you got to realize now when you go out and play in public, you don't play with metronomes. You're playing with people. People are, humans have human rhythm. They ebb and flow, and you've got to be sensitive to that too. And I think that's another part of developing a good sense of timing. Good timing doesn't necessarily just mean metronomic timing. It means that you have this feel of what good rhythm is. And good rhythm can surge. It can move off the beat. But if you know how to surge with it, then you know how to play good and you know how to play in time. If you use a metronome as a tool, you may be frustrated if you're a beginner just starting out, wondering, well, how can I play in time with this thing? Because it can be intimidating, frankly, when you first start out with a metronome. That thing seems to drag and rush. I don't know what's wrong with it. I'm going to take it back. Well, usually it's not the problem with the metronome. The problem is with your timing, and that's a natural thing. It takes a while to adjust to that. But let's look at a way that you can use a metronome to help your timing and maybe see some subtle things about timing that maybe you wouldn't recognize if you didn't practice with a thing like a drum machine. Now let's start out with a slow beat. I want to start out with something, I think this is important. When you practice, start out slow. Start out with 80 beats a minute. Okay? You'll see what kind of groove I'm talking about here. This is a fairly slow beat. Play along with me. Let's go to C. Just play some rhythm for a while. Okay, oftentimes when you're a beginner and you're playing, one of the biggest things is learning how to change chords smoothly and how to go from one chord to the other. Practicing at this type of tempo, 80 beats a minute on a metronome with a fairly straight hi-hat kick type thing, you're going to be able to tell if you're changing, and you're going to be able to practice those changes a lot easier than you would at 100 beats a minute. So you don't want to jump into the fire too fast. Always start out slow. Then gradually increase your speed as you go along. You can increase your speed up to 90 beats a minute from 80, and look at the difference. Okay, now this is true also for lead playing. I think you ought to start slow and build your sense of timing. Another thing you might want to try to do if you're a beginner is to learn how to pat your foot in time with this drum machine. And it might even be worth just trying to turn on the drum machine. Practice patting your foot. Don't even play. That's not as easy as it seems either. And if you learn how to pat your foot in time, then that can be your timekeeper. And if you look at players like Doc Watson, he never ceases to amaze me with how he plays to his foot. Doc sets that rhythm with that foot, and he plays along to it. And everything that he plays is played to that foot. And watch him the next time you see him, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And if you have that type of timing, then you're a time setter for the entire group that you play in, and you're always going to be in time when you play. Let's go back to this tempo here and play a little lead line. Let's play Wildwood Flower in the key of C, which most of you might be familiar with. Okay, now are all the beats coming at the right place? Because most time, people who have timing problems, they don't have a sense of timing where they can't follow the beat at all, they tend to rush or drag, go ahead or fall behind certain parts of the beat at certain parts of the song. So for example, a lot of people will play that song. Okay, now they've already gone ahead of it, see? Or they'll play a certain part of it perfectly in time. They'll get to the end of it and they'll want to rush to the end of the song, and they'll rush or they'll drag. This thing will definitely show you where you're doing that. And if you identify those spots in certain tunes that you play, then you have a better chance of improving your timing with it. Let's move the timing up to about 100 beats a minute. For those of you that flat pick, you're getting in the range here to where you can do some flat picking type songs. Okay, the way that you use the metronome is once you get used to using it, then timing becomes almost a secondary issue. It becomes second nature. See, it becomes unconscious. You literally don't have to think about the timing because it's so tightly ingrained in you from practicing so much with this thing that it's not a consideration, and you don't have to use your conscious mind to think about timing. You can use it to think about what you're playing with your left hand, the tone that you're getting, the other fundamentals. So I think that's a real big key is practicing these fundamentals until they become second nature, until you don't have to think about them consciously. Here's some tips and exercises for improving your timing. One, I would try to play with your drum machine, practice with it in front of a mirror. Now, this may sound silly, but what you're going to get out of this is a visual reference to show you when you're playing in time, because if you have that beat going, it's going to be easy to see visually when you're actually playing the strings in time. So try it in front of a mirror, and you may notice that you can actually physically see yourself dragging or rushing at certain points when you're practicing. And this is especially important when you practice rhythm. Do it in front of a mirror. Another tip, and this will apply to you whether or not you use a metronome or a drum machine, is to double the beats at the speed that you're trying to practice at. For example, if you're practicing a tune at 80 beats a minute or 81 beats a minute, let's say, then double that to 162 beats a minute. Or for example, right here, I've got this set at 182 beats a minute. It gives me a double time reference that's much easier than playing along at 91 beats a minute. Now this is true also with drum machines, because drum machines, as I mentioned, have the clicks as well as the regular preset rhythm patterns. That double time is much easier to follow than half the number of beats. So if you put it at 91 beats a minute, you're going to have half as many beats. And I would continue to think of this in your mind on songs at medium tempos and even faster tempos, is to think of double the number of beats. And sometimes on extremely slow songs, even 4 times the number of beats, like a 16 beat in your head. This helps you keep the rhythm because you can hear where the other beats are in your head, and that way it keeps you on time with the basic timing that you're trying to keep. And you can also do this with the drum machine with your other preset patterns. So I'm practicing there at 192 beats a minute, but actually what I'm playing is half that speed, see? So double your beats, and that'll help you.